Right. I am back today. Long time no speak with the lovely Clayton Thomas from the RootBrand. How are you doing, Clayton? You've been all over the place, haven't you?
Literally.
Literally.
It's been a little bit everywhere, and it has been too long. So it's all, we did our European tour to actually connect with a lot of our Root family. We got to hang out in London a little bit ago. We didn't go back to London. We're getting ready to go to Cyprus in September, which is going to be outstanding. It was really interesting to see some different parts of the world, because it's what's really intriguing is talking with our friends here in the United States. They were like, did you need a passport to travel in Europe? I'm like, no, I didn't wear a mask. I told them I'm American, and I was oppositionally defiant. But was really interesting being on the trains, because we took a lot of trains. You could be on a train between like Austria and Germany and France and Germany, be in Austria or France, and you're cool, everybody's chilling. You get into Germany to like, you have to wear a mask, right? Do you know, like, right when we were back there, we didn't have to, but you're saying now we have to? Like, did the world change in
just ridiculous?
Half a kilometer? But the amount of disinformation, that's out there, that's being spread globally to let people know this is what's going on in these other countries, this is what's taking place, and you're like, no, it's not. That's a lie.
So funny you should say that, because the whole way through, like, everyone from abroad is telling me like, oh, I hear this is happening in the UK, and you're like, no, it's not. No, it really isn't. Now, we went on holiday to Greece. We actually got away to Greece, and it was absolutely hysterical, because it was just before, so they dropped all the other mandates. You didn't have to have any tests, otherwise we wouldn't have been going. There was no of this thing or anything, but you were still meant to wear masks. And when we got on the plane and we were flying very budget, the captain was like, right, because Greece still has their things in their mask mandate in place, you're legally, you're required to wear a mask. Everyone just ignored it at the whole plane, about 2 people at the whole plane, and there was just mass non-compliance, and the staff did nothing.
Yeah, they're like,
the whole way when we went there, no one asked us. Well, a few people asked us, and when we just went, no thanks, they just completely ignored it, and they did it. So it was brilliant. But the misinformation is really important, and that's one of the things we're going to be talking about today, because you're always so good at bringing out the link between what's happening in our own physical, emotional, spiritual vessel and what's happening on a global scale. So what I really want to talk about today, Clayton, is cleaning your slate, and how important that is from a mind, body, spirit perspective.
I honestly don't think there's anything more important right now, because we're in an existential spiritual battle, right? And what we're playing out right now globally, right? This is not Britain, UK, Italy, France, Germany, Russia. Don't say that word. United States, China, right? It has nothing to do with geocentric. It has everything to do with a battle for Western civilization, and honestly, Christianity, as what it's based upon. And whatever your spiritual beliefs are, if you do enough research, it all goes back to one thing anyway, with our search for illumination, which is what we understand Christ was, right? And we're supposed to act Christ-like, but depending upon what your spiritual basis is, it's always about seeking illumination, which is funny, because the illuminaries, which were the original, you go back to Mesopotamian times, that was their search. And then there was the branch that took off that became the Illuminati, and they realized that what we are, that we are this big bundle of energy, whether you want to look at it as the training that we've had of being Christ-like, that he was light and we are like him, or he was like us, which means we too are light, and we try to get connected to the light. They realized that, look, if they disconnect that source here, they can control it. And it's in their mandates that they're going to disconnect people using soft metals, mercury, lead, aluminum, fluoride. Go down, the list of the heavy metals. And it's honestly genius, right? Because if you do it too fast, you just kill people.
Yeah.
But if you do a little bit, generation by generation, and knowing that these heavy metals and environmental toxins and these pollutants are transgenerational because they're passed from mom into fetus, that over time, you just have people where they're completely programmable because those same heavy metals act as receivers for frequencies and signals.
Exactly.
And you can look as technology has improved from the introduction of radar. And, you know, it's funny that that correspondence of the introduction of frequencies in radar led to an introduction of some viral outbreaks, like the plague.
And interestingly, Clayton, not only that, so yeah, you've got, and anyone looking into it to the history of these things will see very clear correlation between what Clayton's just been talking about, but also in terms of at the same time shutting down the healing frequencies that they need.
Well, and that's exactly it, is they know better than the lay public how toxic mercury is. It's the one thing I've hit on in a couple of my videos. It is the most nefarious, most toxic, most deadly substance on the planet that is not a radioactive isotope, save one thing. Dioxin is the winner, right? It is the most deadly substance out there. You get a little dioxin in you, it's going to kill you. Fentanyl now is trying to compete for that. But dioxin's number one, mercury's number two. And they've been smart enough to convince people it was okay to put in your teeth, right? And they put it in all the vaccines you've been getting ever since you were a kid. They're like, oh, you're 6 hours old. You might get Hep B. Your immune system hasn't even started to be created yet. You got 2 weeks of colostrum that you got to get from your mother's breast milk in order to start your immune system. And they want to start injecting you with shit. You might want to do the math on that. And when you go through this process, you look at it and you go, okay, they're loading us with heavy metals that are neurotoxic, that are known to damage every single system of the body, not just 1, 2, 3, but every single one of them, from head to toes, everything in between. These metals will disrupt everything. But if you remember being younger, you know, for like our crowd, if you remember having a television set that had rabbit ears on it, right? You had an antenna, and that antenna received television programming signals that brought it into the television so you could watch your programming. Did you remember that those rabbit ears were freaking aluminum? And it's the aluminum that receives the signals. And if you have a television and you take off the rabbit ears, guess what you get? Nothing. Because without the aluminum receivers, without the antenna, you can't receive the signals. And when you get to understand that this just in, you're the box. Yeah. But instead of giving you rabbit ears, they just injected it with you. They put it in your water supply. They put it in the air. They put it in your food. They put it in your mother. They put it in your grandmother. They put it in your great grandmother. It's all been passed into you. And for the ladies, you're going to pass it into your kids. And it just compounds over time. So it has nothing to do with what goes on in the outside world, right? The most important world, the most important universe that you need to take care of is the one that is you. This universe. If you don't take care of this, everything else doesn't matter. And that's really the key, right? Of how you do that, how you start to really begin to remove what's been in us, what's been put in us, what's been passed to us, what we're exposed to every second of every day, every breath you take. You think the air you breathe is clean? Not a freaking chance. Let alone all the chemtrails and everything else. But you were talking about the heat that's going on in all over the world. You know, the UK is having a heat wave. Let's look at HARP. You know, but if you're inside, you have a couch that has fire retardants on it. You think the heat inside a house isn't causing the release of more fire retardants that are in the materials in your house that are in there just in case there's a house fire and everything doesn't go up really quickly. It's there to protect you, but they're constantly off-gassing and you're inhaling them. Your pets are inhaling them. You have a whole host of...
Luckily, they're on the clean slate, Clayton. Look at them in the background. Aren't they adorable?
And they're chilling. They're like, hey, it's TV time. We need our poses.
Yeah, exactly. They're not stuffed, I promise you. But no, it is so important, because that's why, we don't forget our animals in all of this, because they're dependent on us to look after them. And that's one of the reasons why I'm such a fan of your products. And going back to what you were saying there, it's so, so important, because anyone who's watching this, I've got a very awake, enlightened group of listeners, and you realize that regardless of what area of the life you're looking at, if you want to invite some new opportunities or new friendships or new work into your life, you have to be willing to let go of the old. And as you said, the first thing you've got to do is do that with your physical body, because if you don't get your physical body to get rid of all those toxins, you're going to be making very bad decisions.
You're going to make bad decisions. But when we look at mind, body, spirit, emotion, psychological, all of it comes back to physical.
Yeah.
It is part of the physical structure, because you can think of it like a building, right? If the foundation of a building is not done properly, it will crumble over time. We spent some time in Rome and on our trip, and we were able to have the kids fly in. So we took a couple of days. We were in Rome, and we went to Florence and back to Rome and then home. And Roman architecture has always been something that I absolutely love. Part of the reason was the Romans were using clinoptilolite to line the aqueducts to make sure that their water was clean, because they had a lead problem in the water supply. But as we were walking through the city, we had dinner, we went to Trevi Fountain. You get to see the amazing sculptures. And as we're walking back, you just walk through town, and surprise, you walk right in the middle of the Pantheon. And to see a building that's been over 2,000 years through multiple earthquakes that destroyed the Colosseum, right? Yet the Pantheon still stands. And you have this mega structure that can't be duplicated today. We can't build it. We can't replace it. Yet because of the foundation, it's been able to endure everything throughout history. Granted, the marble face that they used to put on it, I can only imagine what this thing looked like 2,000 years ago when they actually completed it. And to argue that technology back then wasn't as advanced as we are now is completely absurd.
It's just ludicrous, isn't it? I mean, this is what I'm loving so much, is just realizing the lie being told.
The foundation that was laid in that, not only from what was based, but how the entire structure was developed and the engineering it took to say, okay, they're going to build arches in brick throughout the building because they knew the ground shook. So if you build arches, you create additional strength in that structure so it won't collapse. And you go, we don't do that today. And then when you apply that to the human body, and there's such a push today on mental health, on emotional health, on spiritual health, but you have to understand that the physical being that we are, you can say the holographic expression of everything that's internal, right? What we see physically, what we can touch, what's in us actually dictates the spiritual, the emotional, the psychological. And here's the correlating factor of it. Mercury, lead, aluminum, heavy metals, toxic heavy metals, very dense, positively charged, highly positively charged, toxic heavy metals. So when they get into your system, they like to bind to binding sites that are negatively charged. So they will block the binding sites of hormones. They'll block the binding sites of your trace minerals. Some of the key components that you need, they will mimic and block, but it doesn't neutralize them. So they'll get into your brain, they'll get into your central nervous system, they'll block neurons, they'll create amyloid plaque, right? They'll create these issues, but because they're still positively charged, they'll hold on to trauma, emotion, other programming that is negative, right? Because those that are trying to control you actually understand this process quite well. If they feed you stressful information, as if you're not getting it every day, even the stuff that you watch to stay in tune with what's going on that's not in the mainstream media, if you really step back, there's nothing that they're going over that's positive. I have arguments with some of our ambassadors that are like, oh, you can't do this, you can't do this, this is going on. It's all fear porn because it's all programming.
Yeah.
Right? Because if you don't remove the physical metals, if you don't remove the mercury, the lead, the aluminum, the rest of them, but those three being the worst, if you don't actually grab onto them and allow your system to flush them out physically, they are what's holding on to the emotional trauma, the past life trauma, the PTSD, all of it, because they're stored with those metals. As you start to release the metals and you flush them out, which is what Clean Slate is doing better than anything that's ever been on the market, you then will see the emotional trauma release because what's holding it is no longer there. So you can't do the work to clear the emotional, the psychological with, it's like having a safe, right? Someone knows you've got something of great value and they're going to break into your house so they can take what you have, but you have it locked in a safe, a really good safe. So they can break into your house, but they can't get in your safe. It's the same thing of trying to do this process of working on your emotions, working on your spiritual life, when what really is your problem is locked in the safe.
Yeah.
You can't get to it doing those things. You have to go get it. You have to take what nature created to go get it. You have to use what the Romans used to clean up their water supply. You have to use what the Mayans used to clean up their water supply. And you have to use a level of nanotechnology and bioscience engineering that hadn't been available before in order to do it, because what we're dealing with is beyond anything that we've ever dealt with before. That's what Christina's done in creating Clean Slate, is a mechanism that not only will go in and grab onto and bind all of those toxins, but deliver the bioavailable silica, deliver the trace minerals. So as you're pulling something away from one binding site that also has those emotions attached to it, it's delivering the trace minerals that are needed to replace that binding site.
Yeah, which is absolutely crucial. Yeah.
And and here's one of the key things, because people have looked at Clean Slate, they're like, it says silicon dioxide on it. You know, like, this is a zeolite product. And I hate that term because you could be selling asbestos and say it's a zeolite product. And there are dumbass people that would actually buy that today. Yeah. And worse off, there are people in multi-level marketing companies that would sell it ignorantly. Mm. And you don't address the physical. And if you don't understand the real aspects of bioscience engineering, if you don't have a biotech background, let alone nanotechnology and bioscience engineering at Harvard, a program of which Harvard doesn't do anymore because they don't have enough people to participate in it. There's not enough smart people to do the program. My wife did it. I watched her do it. I sat in some of the classes. I saw the people that were in the class: military, DOD, biotech, research, and her that was kind of a blend of all of it. And if you don't function at a level that high, looking at how to address what's going on in the world today, you're going to miss what's really going on. These guys were going over how to terraform Mars, and they already had all the outlays for it, how it was going to be done, because they're doing it. And to really understand the depth of what this universe is, you have to rely on people that are given more information, more knowledge than what collectively we have. We have one of those. So if you're not addressing what really is the issue, right? If you don't address the physical aspects of what goes on in your universe, you're never going to improve, truly improve. You might get a little light through every once in a while, but you're never going to become awake. You're going to be aware. You're going to get a glimpse, right? It's the beautiful part of the matrix. I had an amazing doc in the office yesterday, and we were going over this. And we were talking detoxification. The first part we were talking about was crossing the blood-brain barrier. And I'm like, you don't need to cross the blood-brain barrier. That's old hat. that philosophy of crossing the blood-brain barrier is actually a problem, because what you actually need to do is seal the blood-brain barrier. And Christina and I were going over that yesterday on our first Root University episode, looking at Give Me Back My Youth, because of leaky gut issues, right? People have a leaky gut, right? Because we're so toxic, your gut should be like this, but it's like this. If you have a leaky gut, you have a leaky brain, because the membranes are identical, and they're not mutually exclusive. If
And
you've
that's
got
why
damage here,
also, yeah, I mean, I do a lot of work with animals with self-medication. And the thing is, when you inhale stuff, it bypasses the blood-brain barrier anyway. So that's why they're hitting everyone from all the different angles. And what I love about it, and the reason we're talking about it today, is because, look, folks, you don't have to be, you can take control and have solutions, because they're out there. And, you know, that's the important thing, to break out of that fear cycle, isn't it?
yeah,
To come up with, you know, just empower yourself with solutions. And like you always say, Clayton, is the results speak for themselves. So you've got to try it to see it. There's a time when you can just talk about all these things, but then also you do have to then take the leap of faith and try it for yourself, and then really feel what it's doing for you.
yeah. The proof is in the pudding, as they say, right? It's trust, but verify, right? We are all our own universe, right? So I can't compare my experiences with your experiences, because while we are both human, we are both different. We are both unique. But just to hit on this last part on the blood-brain barrier, about 7 years ago, I think is when the research was first published. Everybody understands, or the majority of people, especially your audience, they understand the lymphatic system, right? That we have lymph. And we have this amazing lymphatic system that's always pulsing and pumping and moving stuff and getting and working to flush things out. But the belief is that the lymphatic system stopped right about here, right? Because lymph can't work in the brain. Glymph can. So your glymphatic system is linked to your lymphatic system. It drains through your lymphatic system, but your glymphatic system is what washes your brain. And it's what works to help remove the heavy metals. It's what helps to remove the amyloid plaque that's built up from the heavy metals, daily. But there's a little catch to this. That's this: your glymphatic system doesn't function if you're not getting into deep REM sleep. And these guys are so smart, they just calcified your pineal gland with a bunch of fluoride, so you can't get into deep sleep. So your brain doesn't wash itself. So you can't clean your brain at night. So it's constantly building up. You're constantly slowing down. You're calcified. So you're not getting deep sleep. You're not getting into REM. You're not dreaming. Can't function. So instead of trying to figure out how to cross the blood-brain barrier, use the proper mechanism, take clean slate for what it does. The fragments are small enough to get into the lymphatic system, which it does, but it decalcifies the pineal gland. You decalcify the pineal gland. You take some zero in, you're able to increase your dopamine and serotonin. Serotonin converts to melatonin, extra serotonin converts to DMT. You start sleeping deeper, you get into REM sleep, you got fragments in glymph, you're washing your brain not only with the glymphatic fluid, but along with a little extra fragments from the clean slate. The silica is actually helping regenerate connections in your brain. That gets washed out every night you do it. And congratulations, you get to start the process of finding a level of performance that is completely unfamiliar to you. It doesn't matter if you're an elite athlete or you're a brand new baby or somewhere in between or a geriatric. There's a level of performance and function that's been basically inhibited from our access because of what's been put in us. And as you remove that, then you get to unlock what we really are. You get to unlock what Neo found when he found the Trinity, not when he took the red pill, right? Neo was a target. Neo was susceptible to being destroyed when he took the red pill. When Neo started on the Trinity, interesting symbolism, right? It was that point when he started to get plugged in. And is it not interesting that when Neo got plugged in, that they went right here and were putting light right on his freaking pineal gland? they're telling you exactly what you need to do.
I know, this is what I love. It's so fascinating, isn't it? It really is. And I think, you know, I've said it before, but because I've seen this work so well with so many animals as well, with a whole range of conditions, you know, obviously the toxic load within our animals is even higher than within most humans. And the results they've had on behavioral, fitting, skin issues, arthritis, digestive issues, eyesight, all sorts of things. It's just never ending. So it's really important when you're looking into all this stuff. Don't forget your furry friends as well. They're reliant on us to make those good decisions for us.
And they're such a phenomenal example in so many aspects, because you're right, animals are about 7 times more polluted than we are.
Yeah.
And they age, you know, depending upon the animal, about 7 times faster than us. So they're 7 times more fastic. Their metabolism functions 7 times faster. And you go, why are my dogs getting cancer? Why are they getting cataracts earlier on? Why do they have arthritis? Why do they have skin issues? And like all the information's right there for you. They're functioning faster. The environment that we're exposed to is actually killing them quicker. And it's letting you know, if your dogs or your cats or your birds and whatnot are having those issues, they're a victim of their environment, and you live in the same thing. You're doing the same thing. You might be feeding them food that might be a little worse than you to eat. But other than that, they're getting the same exposure to everything. And it gives you an idea of what's going to happen to you over the long term.
Yeah, absolutely. There were early warning signal for us, unfortunately. And, you know, we've also got a massive duty of care to protect them, because we've brought them into the human environment. And so therefore we need to take that responsibility seriously.
And the beautiful part is when you flip it and you start to give them things, right? Because there's no placebo effect in a dog. I can't have my Tilly dog in here and look at Tilly and go, Tilly, okay, here's the deal. I'm going to give you this and it's going to make you feel better. And your coat's going to get better. Your skin is going to get better just by taking this. And I want you to think about it so you can do this. And Tilly will look at me and go, throw me the ball.
Exactly.
I'm like, all right. But when you start to see changes, and you see changes really quickly, and you can play with dosages better with animals because they're so energetic, especially with clean slate, where a lot of people are like, I have to start with 1 drop. And Dr. Tina Bozicnik, who's in Slovenia, it's one of the best docs I've ever seen, working with kids and autism and ADD and ADHD and such. She has a 13-month-old that's on 40 drops a day.
Wow.
40, because of the liver issues and the eczema and psoriasis issues that this kid had. It was horrific what this baby was enduring, and she's reversed almost all of it in 6 months or so. The doctor said the kid was just going to die, and that's horrible. But when you start playing with dosage and you understand what's happening and what's taking place, you go, wait, more is better. And there's a reason that we say 10 drops twice a day is ideal. But if you're going lower, bump it up, because when you look at what's happening, you're not only starting to remove all of this stuff, or if you're going through a process and you're like, oh, I don't like how I'm feeling, I'm seeing this stuff happen, great, use more, don't use less.
Yeah, that's what I do. So I do, you know, if I go into London for the day or something like that, then I'll bump my dose up, or if I'm going to the plane or something, or if I notice the chemtrails in the sky. Even somewhere where I can't control my food and water as much, then, you know, this is a great thing. It's like you've got it with you, you can take it with you everywhere you go. And yes, the other products are brilliant, but the reason I wanted to talk about cleaning your slate in general, mind, body, spirit, is it's got to be the starting point for everyone, because once you've done that, then everything else, whatever else you're using, consuming, taking in, exercising, will work better for you.
I mean, it's the crazy part of working with people. Like, I meditate, I do yoga, and I had one of my buddies he has a specific meditation that he does every morning that he's done for what did he say, like 10 years. And depending upon the morning, it's between an hour and 2 hours. for how long his meditation is based on how he feels. And his wife is a practitioner. She's a functional chiropractor and a functional med doc. It's amazing. Mm-hmm. And so we were talking at dinner and, going over what we're doing, because we were going over some of the financials, because he's a private equity expert. And I'm like, are you using this stuff yet? He's like, well, my wife's got it, but I haven't tried it. I'm like, okay, here's your homework. Go home tonight, take 5 drops of clean slate, take 5 in the morning. Before you do your yoga or before you do your meditation, take 2 0N. He's like, really? I'm like, yeah. And then call me tomorrow. So he texts us the next morning, we need to have dinner. Okay. So we go over to the house, sit down at the dinner, we get our food and everything, we get everything all situated, go sit down at the table to have dinner. And he's like, okay, I have a question. I have some questions. What's in this stuff? I'm like, what happened? He's like, I took those 2 capsules before I did before my meditation. And he said, I felt uncomfortable. He said, because I've been doing this for 10 years and I felt like I was almost out of my body. I'm like, I know. Because then you're really connected, right? Because he started to clean stuff up and he boosts his dopamine and serotonin. So while you're meditating, you're getting the serotonin boost, which is converting to DMT. So you're having a full experience. And he's like, I had a 2-hour or 2.5-hour meditation. He said, but I've never had an experience like this. But then as soon as I was done with my meditation, I went to work and I felt like I was on speed because I was getting so much done and I was able to just absolutely crush everything I needed to do. And I was just pounding away on my computer, processing stuff like I've never done before. I'm like, yeah, that's dopamine. Mm. And he's like, I'm uncomfortable because he said, I don't use chemicals or anything. I don't use drugs. I've never used drugs, never done anything like that. I've never felt this way. This is abnormal. I'm like, no, that's actually ideal. That's how you can function. And he's like, is this addictive? I'm like, no, it's not addictive. But if you have the choice to function at that level versus function normally, because he told me, he's like, look, at 2:00 in the afternoon, I could feel it start to come down. I could feel my body coming down. He's like, I didn't like that. Like, yeah, you didn't like normal anymore because you found what ideal and greatness is. He's like, this is crazy. And now you understand what we're doing. It's one thing to talk about it. It's another thing to live it.
And I think that's the main message for people today. And it's like with everything, it's like people sort of look and they talk about a prison planet and things like that, but that's all perception. I don't feel it's prison planet. I love the planet.
We were given the opportunity to turn this into paradise.
Yeah.
But we were also given the opportunity to choose. And granted, as Blake Shelton had his song that tried to put people in the wrong mindset of this is God's country. We don't live in God's country. We live in Satan's playground, right? Because he was put here. We were put here, you could say as an experiment, right? But we were put here as the balancing act. But it's our free will. It's our choice to say, are we going to choose light or are we going to choose darkness? And this has been going on for a long time. And the amazing part, right? Some people are like, oh my God, this is so terrible. This is the end times. And like, you could look at it as a negative, but you can also look at it as we are the change. Absolutely. We are the generation, we are the time that is the tipping point, right? When you go back through the book or through different books, whether it's history books or biblical or what you want to look at, and you go, all of these things happen. And it's like, yes, all of that is prologue to now, right? Everything before created the foundation for this response currently. And it is our opportunity, it is our choice on how we want to do that. You can choose to be a victim. completely your choice, right? You have many choices to do that in. You can comply and say, okay, I'm going to get as many of those as I can because that's what I'm told to do. Great deal. You're not going to be here very long. Thanks for playing. Your choice. Right? You can choose to go into combat. You can choose to go into an environment where you can get assaulted. Not saying that some bad things can happen at different times, but you can put yourself in a position where bad things can happen. Or you can choose the other side. It's like, you know what? I'm going to make sure I'm doing things to protect myself, to make sure that I understand that we are light, that I understand what's really going on around, that it is not bad, it's process, right? Oh, they're putting up towers and they're sending other frequencies. Yeah, they are. And if you don't have the antennas, that stuff won't bother you.
Yeah.
So who cares? Take care of your own. Take care of this universe. Because if you go back and you watch, Christina was having some dreams the last couple of nights. She's like, I'm having dreams and I'm supposed to watch Divergent. I'm supposed to go back and watch the Hunger Games. I have to watch, she's like, we have to watch these. And we turned on the Hunger Games. We're working on finishing the Hunger Games. We're starting the third one. I don't even think I ever watched the fourth one. So it's going to be interesting. But she's like, I'm her. I'm like, ah. And you're Liam. I'm like, you're getting it now. You're seeing the symbolism. But the same thing with the Matrix, right? Where we think they're in Neo, that there's one, but actually we are all him.
Yeah.
We all have the ability to unlock what we are. And at that point, when collectively, right? Because we talk about collective consciousness and the tipping point and the 100 monkey theory. And that's why we have the root community. I mean, it gets into a whole other conversation of what I actually designed and why I wanted to do what we're doing. Because when you have a community that starts to do things that their collective consciousness and what they're doing globally, because we're in 60 plus countries, and their vibration starts to increase, the resonance increases. And when we have enough people globally, everyone is going to start to realize this is what we need to do. And so it's what point in collective consciousness do you want to participate? Do you want to be an early adopter? Because guess what? You get rewarded for it.
Yeah, I want to talk about this because it's a big issue. So every time it's really bizarre because obviously I'm a biologist, natural health practitioner. I work with people and animals to help put any aspects of their life back in balance. And a lot of it, the root cause is always toxicity to start with. But then when you talk about solutions for people don't like the fact you're selling things. Now, I just want you as simply as you can to explain to people why you set up so that money is not a barrier to anyone getting the root products, because anyone can get their link and start sharing it and get their products for free. How important was it for you, Clayton, to set it up like that?
It was crucial because everything is about psychology, or you can look at how someone's created a business or someone's created something to get an idea of how they function, right? You can walk into a restaurant and based on the artwork, based on the ambiance, you get a feel for what the night is going to be like, right? You can get a feeling for it. So philosophically, if you know that every one of us is of great value, every one of us is capable of becoming the same thing, illumination, that we are light, why would you ever say you can't do this because you're lacking means at this time? You don't have money right now in order to get these things, where there's something that's in all of us that allows us to create value. We all have relationships. You could be homeless on the street and you still know people. And you know people who know people who know people, because here's a little secret. And I'll say they, in the creation of the Internet of Things, and the creation of social media as a means of connecting all of us to farm and harvest all of our data, all of our information, all of our behavior, to create algorithms to track all of that, to figure out exactly what we're going to do. You could call it adaptive analytics. You could say that they're using it for artificial intelligence, maybe, because there's machine learning going on. But as we know in the universe, every action has an equal and opposite reaction, right? It's law. These things don't change. So through that process, what they did is they connected everyone. So we don't need advertising and marketing. As a company, I don't need to spend 50% of my initial budget on marketing and advertising to go to YouTube, to go to Google, to go to Facebook, to go to IG, to go to television, to go to radio, to go wherever and say, okay, here's my target markets. Here's the ROI that I want here. So give me your data, give me the analytics. If we have these products, I want to spin it this way, and I want access to these people. And I know if I spend this amount of money, if I spend $10,000, I'm going to get $200,000 in revenue. I'm going to take that $200,000 in revenue. I'm going to take $20,000 and I'm going to get $400,000 in revenue, because I'm feeding the beast. And if we are all connected already through the same social networks, whether it's actual physical networks of having real relationships anymore, and actually you sit down and you look eye to eye and you touch someone, right? How rare is that anymore? But we're having interaction on video. If you're on social media, if you're on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Telegram, whatever, we're all connected. There's almost 8 billion people now that are all connected through socials in some way or another. If that's the case, why do we need the rest of it? What you need to do is provide quality and give people an opportunity to tap into what they've done, which is create an environment of human experience. And while it might not be your direct influence, it might just be who you know that knows someone that knows someone that knows someone. Like I was sitting down with an individual yesterday, and I'm like, look, I know you were one of the guys that did some stuff with the guy that used to be the president. He's like, how'd you know that? I'm like, I know these things. So I know what choices he made, whether he was deceived in thinking that he needed to do an emergency use authorization in order to push this. And they were telling him it was one thing and it was actually another thing, and he was deceived, or if he did it to make sure that this was released so humanity could see what they were doing and how evil this really was, and to play out a larger plan. I don't have that knowledge, but here's what I know. We have a solution. We have it published. We have it peer reviewed. It's already available. All of these issues that people are having, we reverse them in 30 days. All of them. Heart, systemic inflammation, liver, all those issues gone in 30 days. We have it all published. It's all proven, peer reviewed, done. And you want to reach out to them, you know them. 80 million people in the US voted for them, at least, probably more. And let's go. I never dreamed that I was going to be that close to those guys, but I'm literally a conversation away. And then when you take that and you go, well, that individual is connected to every major leader in the world, and that all of those leaders are all connected to every person in their country. So there we go. We just covered the entire planet in a conversation. So
I have to say, most leaders aren't really connected to any of the people in their country.
They're not connected, and this is
not
the
from
point.
the right place. Yeah. But
you just hit on the key component to the entire reason I built the infrastructure. And this is what you'll understand, because you are one of the best examples of this. There is a difference between having influence and having an audience, right? And in our business world, there has been a disconnect because of how the beast is very, very good. The beast rewards the audience because they want the performance. They want the distraction. Because I haven't read the entire book, I'm not very good at this, but isn't another name for, as the church lady said, Satan? known as the great distractor.
Mm.
So they're rewarding audience, but what you really need to reward, because value creation comes from influence. You have influence because the audience that follows you actually responds to what you're doing because they're engaged with you. Because here's a little secret about human nature. You know, one of the things that we love to watch, car crashes. We love, like, especially in the United States, we have NASCAR, we have all this stuff. People don't go to a car race to watch cars go around in circles.
No, they don't.
They love to see carnage, right?
Yeah.
They want car crashes. They don't want death, right? They don't want to see people die.
No.
But what they want to see is just carnage. They know this, so they give you the programming. They reward people with rewards for having an audience to provide programming that causes more stress, more trauma. I'm not going to use names, but I could drop 5 of the influencers that are actually working with us right now, that every single minute of every day, they're putting out information that is doing more to scare people and put them in the fear box versus the ascension box, because they have advertisers that are paying them for their audience, and they're dictating, if you do these things, we'll pay you. And even the things that they're advertising aren't even good for their population, but they don't even understand the box that they're playing in. I wanted to disrupt the entire system, because if we're going to ascend, if we're going to change as humanity, that means in every aspect of our life, we can't go back to what has been done. We have to innovate. We have to grow. We have to change. We can't have commerce the way that it was, because if we do all of these things and we change currencies and everything becomes glorious, and we keep and then we do that, and then we again put money back into the beast, what do? We just funded it again. And it's going to go back to the same issue.
It is so important that, Clayton, you know, this is why everyone keeps saying it all starts with you. It starts with you cleaning up your own physical vessel and everything else that goes with it. And it really starts with the decisions that you as an individual are making every day of your life, because that is what becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. And, you know, for me, I just think it's so important, because yes, a lot of people don't have the funds now. And this is why, another reason why I love you guys so much, is because anyone that wants to start having a positive influence, you can sign up for free using the link below, and then you get your own link and you share that with other people. Now, whilst you're doing that, you don't have to spend a penny. Now, I would strongly advise that you go on the Roots YouTube channel and use all the resources available there to educate yourself so that you're authentically spreading the word. You can do all of that for completely free, and then you can get your own products for free as a starter, start taking them, and then even more authentically spreading the message. So there is no barrier to entry for anyone for this.
And it gives you the opportunity to understand your value. You might be the first person to do research and find, like, wow, this is actually really important. And I get messages on social media. It's like, I love your products, but I can't afford them. I'm like, you don't understand what we're doing then.
Yeah.
Create an account. If you understand how valuable these are, yet you're uncomfortable financially and being capable of, willing to spend the money on that, then do what you did. Create a free account.
Yeah.
Contact the people that trust you, that you like, or it could be just on social media, and share what your findings are, because you found value, you share value. And by sharing that value and have people then say, yeah, I want to try this stuff.
Yeah.
You get rewarded for it because you are the one who created that value. And then you are then able to take those rewards points and use them to purchase the stuff that you want. So you're using, and this is something that's really unique. And I've seen this in fundraising for nonprofit organizations over the last couple of years, because in the United States, about 60 to 70% of all the nonprofit organizations in the United States went out of business in the last 2 years.
Wow.
And, I have some friends that have very large organizations. So they're constantly trying to do events and have conversations and talk to donors and raise money for different causes, millions upon millions of dollars to do different causes. And, I've had to chat with them about one instance last year and a half ago. One participant in one of my friend's nonprofit organizations is in New York. He sold his company for $100 million. He cashed out $100 million. Now, I'm going to assume that the majority of us here, if we cashed out for $100 million, we're not going to think we have financial issues any longer, right? You're usually pretty good at that point. You could figure out a lifestyle and a way of putting money together. You go, I'm going to be comfortable. I'm going to be all right.
Just a bit.
But when they went to this individual and asked him for a donation, he said, I don't know what's going on in the market. I'm not comfortable in giving you money right now. And I'm like, well, that's kind of odd, because you're going to get hit with a huge tax bill, and making a donation to a nonprofit organization is actually a tax write-off. So it's actually not going to cost you anything, which is a whole other conversation that they didn't have. But they were like, we don't understand. I said, well, because people with money right now don't understand what's going on in this market. They know that there's going to be absolute chaos. And I said, and here's your disconnect. You're asking for the one thing that he wants to keep, but there's something else that he'll give you for free. And it's his influence. And we, for decades, have given it away for free. You don't even know you do it. You don't even know that you've been farmed for every behavior that you do, every post you make, everything that you like, every video that you watch, every piece of behavior is creating value for someone else.
But none of us would actually want to give our money to.
Exactly. When you understand how deep that goes. So if we're going to take everything back, if we're going to become better, then as business owners, as companies, and this is what I wanted to force, was not just what we were doing with Root. I wanted to create a community of consumption, an ecosystem, which is what we've done, because we had to let it behave. I couldn't come out and say, we're doing this. This is going to be the greatest thing. Amazon came out selling used books out of Jeff Bezos' parents' garage. Jeff Bezos' wife's parents' garage, sorry. You look at Amazon now and you go, it's a little bit different than selling used books out of a garage, right? The intention might have been to get here, but that's not what they came out and stated initially. You have to let the system, you have to let the ecosystem, the community behave. You have to show it. And as you put out value, you will in turn receive more. And that's what's really important for people to understand, is that we just wanted to put the value proposition back into those who create it, which is all of us. You don't need.
I think the mums are powerful. So there's nothing more than we want than health for our children. And I think that's what draws everyone together. Thank you so much, Clayton. I always love our chats so much. They're so fun. They just cover so many different subjects and everything. And your next trip is Cyprus, is it?
In September. So that'll be coming out here really soon. And if you're part of the community, you'll want to be there. It's going to be, and there's a couple surprises to come in collaboration with Cyprus that'll excite people here pretty quick too.
Cool. Thank you everyone for watching. Put your questions below and we will be back soon. Thanks a lot, Clayton.
Cheers.
Take care.